nice little article about the 4 generations, and it talks about the PTA. So we'll just go through this one because it's pretty short, and I can just read it through it. And if you have any questions, you can always send me an email. Generation change, intergenerational conflict, whatever you call it, our society is confronted with different generations that often have a failure to communicate. For PTAs, an older generation may be leading a PTA while a younger generation constitutes the majority of the parents. Or newly minted teachers may be dealing with older parents. So there might be a generation gap. Our oldest generation is the silent generation, born between 1925 and 1945. The 30 million members of this generation are motivated not only by tradition, but also by issues that touch them personally. Thus, if their close friends or family members, particularly grandchildren, have been or are being personally affected by public education, you are more likely to be able to interest them. To discover if they have connections to education and PTA's missions might require a bit more probing on your part, but it can really pay off. The youngest silent generation members have just turned 65, and a higher percentage of them volunteer. They also vote. People don't, that doesn't mention that article, but older people vote. Baby boomers are next. These are called baby boomers because everyone knows why. After World War II, the American soldiers came back. They had the GI Bill. They had a lot of jobs available, and they really enjoyed all that, and they enjoyed the money that was coming through. And what ended up happening was the largest generation in American history. So that may sound silly, but not only to boomers who are leaving private industry, government, and the military in uncertain numbers. Why? Because in the words of hundreds of boomers I've talked with you about transition, I want to save the world again. We now turn to Generation X, 45 million adults who were born between 1963 and 1980. I am Generation X. These individuals are hardworking, independent, and by the way, more than ready for the boomers to move aside. Generation Xers are very concerned with work-life balance. Just so you also know that the baby boomers is the largest generation in American history. And this is going to be put the pressure on Social Security, and that everyone keeps talking about. Social Security will not be funded and all that. It's because Social Security is primarily funded through existing payments. So a generation that is working is paying for the generation that's retired. So when the baby boomers, the large generation, retires, Generation X, as well as the next generation, comes in, will have to deal with that. As ever known as, they're often called Generation Y or the Millennials. That's the 4th generation. They call them Gen. I've heard them called Generation Y. I've never heard of Millennials, and they're saying it's nearly as large as 75 million. So we have 4 generations. Meet members where they are culturally. For example, let's say you are a boomer PTA president and you have a pair of 28-year-old Generation Y parents in your school. You want to join your unit. You get their phone number from a sign-in sheet they filled out at the back of the school event. Call and leave a message on your phone number. No luck, no return call. With a bit of frustration in your voice, you note that you had left repeated messages and didn't get a reply. She looks at you and says, a little resentfully, I texted you back, but it didn't go through. See, so technology is different between each group. So the point of this whole article is be aware that there are different generations, and this article does a real good job of lining up the 4 generations. We have generation, what's that? What's the first one? The silent generation. Baby boomers, Generation X, and Generation Y. So those are 4 generations that are ushering through education. The silent generation slowly, they are passing away. We're losing a lot of the silent generation. But the baby boomers are the next one's coming up, so you'll see all that. I don't know what the new generation is after Generation Y. It'd be kind of cool. But how can a PTA address this? And the article talks about it. Hope you enjoyed the article.